So now I have the pleasure to introduce our second speaker, Professor Pierre Buekens, that probably many of you already know, since he has been trained and obtained his medical doctorate, Master of Public Health and PhD in Belgium at ULB, and who worked at Saint-Pierre Hospital, and has been also senior researcher at FNRS and vice-dean of the ULB School of Public Health. Dr. Buekens has been elected corresponding member of our Académie in 2013 and has done his first presentation to our company on the concept of global health in 2015. He is presently Dean of the School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine and Director of the Office of Global Health at the Tulane University at New York. Yves Carlier has had the pleasure to work with him at Tulane University on a large NIA project on Chagas disease. Dr. Buekens is an internationally recognized epidemiologist specialized in perinatal epidemiology, and he also published a lot of epidemiological papers and will share with us his experience. Thank you, Dr. Buekens, and you have the floor.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Secrétaire perpétuel, merci de m'avoir invité à nouveau. Yves, thank you for organizing this, and Nathan, it's good to see you again. Thanks for the kind introduction. I was asked to talk about the epidemiology of neglected tropical diseases, but I decided to change the title to the neglected epidemiology of tropical diseases, because I feel there is always a kind of tension between epidemiology and tropical diseases. As you said, Nathan, I'm the Dean of the School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine in the same region as Peter Hotez. That's why we collaborate so often, and we do a lot together. We are in New Orleans, and the name of the school was changed in the 1960s. Originally, it was a school of tropical medicine and hygiene, the oldest perhaps in the world as a combination of public health and tropical medicine, or public health and hygiene. This is a reprint of the visionary paper published in 1912 by our founding dean, who really wanted to create this combined school. And the concept of combining tropical medicine and hygiene is really not unique. You know that there is the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Is it really a random thing that there is another Belgian dean there? Perhaps not. This tradition of combining public health and tropical medicine is perhaps what we do very well in Belgium by combining the work of Antwerp and the different schools of public health. In the US, Peter has been president of the American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. So a few very historic organizations have decided not to change their name and to keep this concept of hygiene there. And that's pretty difficult to do, because if you look at the history of hygiene had some strengths, but also some disasters, which in public health and epidemiology we want to forget about. The good thing is that hygiene in the 19th century was about social justice, was about poverty, was about the huge social inequalities induced by industrialization. So it was really a reaction against that. And they were right, the hygienists, that this was the key problem, this social injustice in the industrial Europe of the 19th century. But they got the wrong mechanism. They thought it was due to miasma, which was of course not true. They got the right solution from the wrong mechanism, because they promoted sanitation, which completely improved the health of the public. So they had the right values, they had the right solution, but they were completely banned from the academic world to some extent because they believed in miasma. And they were facing the germ theory, and they were facing, to some extent, what was already tropical medicine. Tropical medicine, it's not like hygiene. Hygiene has this strong foundation in social justice. Tropical medicine was a consequence of colonialism. So it has a dark history, which is difficult to forget. And one of the reasons epidemiologists and many people in public health still do not accept the concept of tropical medicine is that for them it's a colonial concept. And they are about social justice. Germ theory was the mechanism of infectious disease specialists, including tropical medicine specialists, and germ theory was correct. Maybe it was a little bit kind of limited, but it was correct. And the solution which was developed were vaccines, which were also, of course, a very helpful solution. So, a very tough history there, and then there was a renewal. There was a renewal just after the Second World War, in the 1950s, a renewal for epidemiology. They forgot about infectious diseases, which were supposed to be solved. And if you go to a school of public health today, it's dominated by epidemiology. I mean, if when you were on sabbatical at Tulane, you were shocked by that. You were kind of, why are epidemiologists so arrogant there? Because they are leading the game, and it's not about infectious diseases, it's about chronic diseases. Because they reinvented themselves as specialists of chronic diseases when it was a black box. Again, they could use the same approach of not understanding exactly the mechanism, using very complex mathematical modeling to do the best, to predict what would happen, and then propose the right behavioral changes. So they became again the winners, but by forgetting their past of miasma and hygiene. And that's why if you go to a department of epidemiology today, there is very little infectious disease there. Now, tropical medicine, it took tropical medicine a long time to reinvent itself. It was almost dying until people like Peter Hotez found a way to communicate about it. And what did Peter just say? That 1 or 2 decades ago, they invented the concept of neglected tropical diseases. That's putting social justice back into tropical medicine. That's trying to erasing the colonial past, finding a new cause acceptable for the public health community. But it communicates also that he's keeping his original values. What were the success of tropical medicine in the past? Vaccines. That's why people tell me if I'm reading too much into you, but that's why he communicates so much about vaccines. He says neglected tropical medicine, diseases, social justice, and then he's going back to his roots of vaccines. He found really a good way to communicate about it. And what I never discussed with Peter, but I discussed a lot with Yves and Karine here, is the causal mechanism they have in mind and the philosophy they have in mind. And my feeling is that it's still the traditional germ theory which really dominates tropical medicine. It's still the Koch postulates. It's there, we don't talk about it, but in tropical medicine, when I go to the TropMed meetings, and I go very often now, I really enjoy them. I learn a lot and they're fantastic. But the causal mechanism there for almost any presentation is the Koch postulate. You have to isolate the organism, you have to cultivate it, and if you can inoculate it, it's even better. And it's maybe more for neglected tropical diseases than for infectious disease in general, because they deal with parasites, they deal with things they can really see in a microscope, and so it's still there. So, I don't know, how many of you have a Netflix subscription? How many? This is the first time the Académie is polled on this topic, right? So this is a historic moment. Well, look at Charité. You know, in German, this is a fantastic German series on Charité Hospital. At the time of Koch and the fights between Virchow and Koch and so on. And you will see all the people are taking notes, which is very good. So I had an impact here. So look at all this this incredible fight about the germ theory, and you will also then understand, if you read the scientific literature, that it's all a myth to some extent. There is a fantastic paper by Grandman trying to review historically what did Koch really say about the Koch postulates. I mean, first, Koch hated postulates and never used that word. Then he never wrote anything about Koch postulates, and he never communicated about it. So, and if you try, because I tried for this presentation to really list the Koch postulates, you will find 100 different versions because they don't exist. So, Grandman's conclusion is that in referring to a historical event that never happened, such references serve to remind their audiences of a tradition of experimental medicine that supposedly originated with Robert Koch. Karl Popper would have loved this. Karl Popper is the philosopher epidemiologists follow. They don't follow Koch. They follow Karl Popper, and Karl Popper, of course, said science must begin with myth and with the criticism of myth. And really, you know, epidemiologists are following this Karl Popper philosophy, which is quite different from the traditional germ theory approach. For epidemiologists, you have to start with a hypothesis. And then you have to refute it. You cannot prove anything. You cannot prove that all the swans are white. You can only disprove it if you find a black swan. And that has been, especially during your sabbatical, Eve, that has been, because during a year we had a lot of these exchanges, you would say, but this is proving it. You say, there is no proof. And then you would kind of get a little bit nervous. You know, how can you say there is no proof? But we don't believe in proof. While I feel in tropical medicine, it's still a lot about observation and proof. So we have really also conflicting heroes. I mean, the most respected historical figure in epidemiology is William of Ockham, of the Ockham Razor, a monk from the 12th century. Okay? That's not very action-oriented, but epidemiologists, we are not very action-oriented. And William of Ockham really suggested, as many have done since him, that you have to find the explanation which is as parsimonious, as simple as possible. Complexity is wrong. Well, every time I go to the TropMed meetings, there are a lot of awards. They are almost very frequently given in honor of people who died from inoculating to themselves the disease they were studying. That's cool in TropMed, you know. And you know, it's still, there is a, when I was in sabbatical in Yucatan, there is a colleague from Belgium who works on leishmaniasis there, and I asked her, but what is cutaneous leishmaniasis, what does it look like? And she said, like this. So and she was proud of that. So Carrion, for example, inoculated to himself the agent of the fear of aurora, died from the disease, and it's now the Carrion's disease. So a monk and somebody who inoculates to himself a disease and dies, this is a different philosophy of life, right? And epidemiologists want population-based studies. They want the studies to be representative. They want to reduce biases. And in TropMed there is always, and it's not a criticism, I respect both. You know, I really try to do both. In TropMed, it's most about getting unique samples. I got calls all the time to get my samples. Just send me the blood. But yeah, but you know, but there is a good reason for that. There's always this willingness to find new solutions quickly, while epidemiologists contemplate the world. So let me give you one example. This is the last paper we published together with Yves and with Karine on congenital transmission of T. cruzi in 3 countries. I wanted 3 countries because I wanted a population-based study, very standardized. And of course, we quickly found very discordant results. For example, if you try to determine who has Chagas and who does not, you know, you need 2 tests, and they often are not really giving you the same result. So, as an epidemiologist, I was only interested in the areas which are both gray and blue. I was not really interested in the discordant cases, because I'm interested in finding commonalities, right, like Ockham. But Karine is now writing a paper on these Mexican discrepancies, and our group at Tulane is finding really genetic differences at the level of the parasite, able to explain probably these differences. So as an epidemiologist, by always trying to find a simple common approach and making things perhaps easier to see, but I might miss what somebody in TropMed will see. By working together, we really are able, I think, to have the best of both worlds. I also thought before working in, with Karine that it was really possible to decide if you see a parasite or if you don't. But if you go to a TropMed lab today, there is no microscope there, right? It's all about molecular methods, and some of these molecular methods are automated, but most are not, like conventional PCR. This is a slide from you, Karine. And yeah, conventional PCR is about deciding if the little gray lines are really gray and if they are there or not. And you know, it's pretty qualitative research. It's not really yes or no, and you have different, if you do it again, you have different approaches. So the concept in TropMed of being able to say, yes, I've seen the parasite, the patient is infected, is not that true anymore. It's all about probabilities, not about being yes or no. Now, we found 6% congenital transmission in Argentina and Mexico. 6% in Argentina is exactly what is expected from the meta-analysis we done of existing studies, but there are no real good study about Mexico. So we found 6 and 6. So for me, the conclusion is that it's transmitting the same way from Mexico to Argentina. But then we found no transmission in Honduras. Every time I presented this to a TropMed meeting, the only question is about why Honduras? But my answer, you know, I don't care. Mexico and Argentina, you know, are equal. That's not the way in TropMed people think. So, but because I was thinking epidemiology, I was kind of forgetting Honduras, especially when I got the confidence intervals and say, you know, this is not a refutation. You know, it's too small sample size. Perhaps they're all the same. But now it seems that we're finding different haplotypes in Mexico and Honduras. So it's only by working with my colleague in TropMed that I'm not so excessive in simplifying the world. And maybe by working with us, you know, they have more representative population-based data. So, and this will be my last slide. I think this is converging, and it should be converging. First, we all use molecular methods now, and the same methods. And molecular methods are never yes or no. They are semi-quantitative. And they give you probabilities. And by working on probabilities, you have to work using the same analytical measures. And on the other hand, epidemiologists are open again to infectious diseases, because they use this concept of exposome, a combination of exposure to a lot of different infectious agent, environmental agent, and so on. They are not so, and they kind of accept a little bit more their history. So I think we are now ready to really work together, and I think a place like the Academy, it's a good place to think about that. It's not a debate which is really interesting to a very broad public, but I think it's important to have that debate, to learn from our tensions and to learn how to work together. Thank you.